We're joined now by Matthew Cole, the investigative journalist who wrote the story. The article is entitled "The Complete Mercenary: How Erik Prince Used the Rise of Trump to Make an Improbable Comeback." Matthew, welcome back to Democracy Now!
With Trump's election, Prince was back in the game, and he had been out for 8 years for the entire Obama administration, and the Trump administration, which was largely backed by the Mercer family during the campaign, also close to the Prince family, Bannon, Breitbart, all people that Erik Prince was close to. Erik Prince saw an opportunity here to get back into government contracting, and his plan was to pull U.S. troops out of Afghanistan in their entirety and replace them with something like what he called the East India Corporation. That's what he compared it to, and that the U.S. should have a viceroy, and that someone like Erik Prince should be the viceroy, and put together a private military that would do work with the Afghan army. And that proposal, which he plugged in op-eds and television, landed very poorly inside the national security establishment in the U.S. It also landed very poorly in Afghanistan, where Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has said under no circumstances will Erik Prince or a private military, foreign military, be allowed to operate in Afghanistan.
You also have this latest report from Reuters. Over the last several months, Prince has sought investment and political support for an operation involving Venezuela from influential Trump supporters and wealthy Venezuelan exiles. In private meetings in the U.S. and Europe, Prince sketched out a plan to field up to 5,000 soldiers for hire on behalf of Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, according to two sources with direct knowledge of Prince's pitch.
You know, what makes Erik Prince so unique is that there are very few Americans who have the wealth and the political power and his experience, so that someone who has really never worked for the government or been part of government is taken so seriously whenever there is, or wherever there is, a conflict, a hotspot around the world. Erik Prince travels the world almost weekly, going to capitals, meeting with countries' leaders, selling a mercenary concept, a paramilitary arm. And what he tries to do is own every piece of a supply chain for conflict. And so it was no surprise, it was shocking, but it's no surprise that he had a plan for Venezuela. One hopes, and part of the reason why I worked on this story for so long, was one hopes that by understanding how incompetent he is as a businessman and as a manager for these programs, that no one would trust him to give him that kind of responsibility or the money to pay for something like this.
You broke news with this part of the piece. During the 2016 election, he became involved with James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, a group of conservative provocateurs who specialize in using hidden camera footage and secret recordings.
Yeah, and this was, again, what I was saying about him coming back sort of domestically was, as he failed abroad, he started to look at politics and come back home. And what he did was he found like-minded groups. He had been pitched years before to be an investor in the Israeli intelligence company called Blackwater, which got notoriety during the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too movement, with the Harvey Weinstein investigations, and they are former Israeli intelligence operatives who act and pose as people, as journalists, to try to gather information, usually for dirt. And it's,
Weinstein hired them to try to...
Right. Weinstein's lawyer hired them to try to figure out what journalists who were digging into the story knew, and to try to see if they could stop the stories. And so Erik Prince has merged, essentially, with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, and provided them with training from former spies to teach them surveillance, elicitation, weapons training. He brought them out after the election. He brought them out to his family ranch in Wyoming and gave them weapons training. And what he has now is a team of dedicated people who have some training in being undercover. And the question is to what end?
Project Veritas goes after groups like Planned Parenthood.
Right, but I actually think that what we're going to see, and in fact we have some indication already, that Erik Prince is using Project Veritas to target his political enemies, or political enemies of the Trump administration, or his political associates. And so that becomes the question, is what is he doing with them? How are they going to be used? What are they capable of? And as he has been sort of denied the ability to sell, let's say, tanks or planes, he's now trying to sell undercover intelligence operatives, but not for a covert war, for American politics, and that's what makes him particularly dangerous.